Okay, welcome back to Off the Clock episode. Today we have a very special guest, somebody that I know very well, who came from Cape Town to Joburg and was complaining about the lack of the sea and the mountain. And I think finally you're a Joburger. You settled down very nicely. So one thing that we do here, Ian, is we normally give our guests an opportunity to thoroughly introduce themselves in terms of, where they came from, to the flashy corner office that you have today, and the flashy German car or the car that you drive. And I mean, I'm sure for you, I don't know if you grew up in Mitchell's Plain or the dangerous part of Cape Town. So welcome and over to you, Ian.
Firstly, Peter, thanks for the introduction. It's really great to be part of the podcast. So the way I describe myself, I currently live in Joburg with my heart in Cape Town. So, because I have to acknowledge that both Cape Town and Joburg have formed an important part of my lives. While growing up there, spending my early formative career, but my family, my daughters, they've grown up in Johannesburg, so it obviously has a very different place in my heart. In terms of growing up in Cape Town, it's not quite Mitchell's Plain, but a suburb on the Cape Flats called Lotus River is where I grew up where my folks still live, and where we often visit because home is home, no matter where it sits. I think for me, when I look at my journey, it's been about Cape Town family growing up. The next part of what I think helps shape where I am today is spending a lot of time at the University of Cape Town Medical School. I'm a medical scientist by training, so that's influence around science, but also having a window that overlooks, from a lab that overlooks the mountain, so you always have that contact with nature. And that is something that has probably connected me when I look at the things that make the heart happy and makes the soul happy. That outward look in terms of the mountain, the fresh air, is something that still is very close to my heart. And then growing up with the family, meeting my wife again at the university when I was in third year, so getting lots of memories that shape and form. And also while I was at the university working for a period of time, so while being in science, also running a small business, which for probably nearly 10 years.
Small business? Fat cakes?
Not quite fat cakes, a little bit more sophisticated than that. All the way from manufacturing to straight to the end customer. So my wife, when she was finished a science degree, wanting to do medicine, did not have bursaries, etc. She started a small business called Sam, named after Sam was S for her first name, Shirley, and her surname was Milkovich M. So it was Shirley anything Milkovich was the Sam part.
Milkovich.
And it was, she's actually Milkovich from Ukrainian descent. And Sam was really about, we ran a small business at the time, which we started running while I was still working at university when we got married, was manufacturing clothing for women and selling them on the flea markets. So there was a point in my life where I would know every stitch in a garment from a female's garment point of view, because we used to buy the buttons, the sewing, all the fabric, all the support structure. We had a cutting table in our garage, which used to, after work, cut up material. Next morning, take it to the CMT, which we had together. Drop it off at the two stalls on the Cape Town flea market. Work on the stalls on weekends, and that funded studies, life, and helped when you're earning only university salaries, funded many things beyond that. So that was so that was really my first segue while being in science, my first segue into business. because you learned I think the things you learn in life, when you sit in corporate where we are right now, you're working with big business money. When you're running a small business, if you spend incorrectly, it's your money going down the drain. When you've got a cash flow problem, it is you that don't have the money to pay the staff salary. So you look at that whole process around, if you pick the wrong design, and women's fashion changes fairly rapidly. If you pick the wrong color, if you pick the wrong color in the wrong season and the wrong cut, you've invested money and you have zero return. You have to kind of turn stock around very quickly. So that's helped frame some of the way I think about business right now, and how it, when bad decisions cost. And so how do you actually try to make more right decisions in life, and especially in business, and weigh the impact of that. So that is all part of I would say, the Cape Town formative part of where I've started in science as a medical scientist, did business on my own before actually moving to corporate and the pharmaceutical space.
So, let's just pause there a little bit. By the way, for you, Klatsi, Ian and I, Ian is the current head of BD, the company that I used to work for before. I actually employed Ian to head up one of the businesses. Very proud of what Ian has done and still doing. And maybe we want to go back a little bit, step back and know a little bit about how you basically entered the medtech and the pharma industry over time, because up until now, I think you told us how you made it in the university and the side hustles that you had with your wife. And we also want to know if you're still doing that, because it sounds like something that it's in you guys as a family.
So it's something we've explored, and it's something my wife is currently exploring at the moment in terms of not so necessarily a side hustle, but how does she step out of what she do now? So how do we do that? I think I was working at the university at the time, and when I'd finished my master's and actually was starting a PhD, and so my wife's a medical doctor. She had finished her degree. We just bought a practice. So for me, a lot of what the decision making and decisions around life is about where we are as a family. So it's less about, okay, Ian is in this space, Shirley's in this space. It's about where we are together. So some of this, I would say, early part of my life, while I was working at university, that was the steady part of our income. My wife was a student at the time. Then she kind of was doing locum. So I was a steady income, and we then did not do much change in my career. But while the university, I would say, was probably a fulfilling career experience because of challenge around research, challenging the mind, etc., and really exploring. And the nature of the research unit which I was in was really top-notch, a lot of overseas collaboration. But as you know, the financial rewards at university doesn't necessarily fund not necessarily the German car you want, but everything you want, I would say everything you maybe want, all the things you may want to give to your family over time. And so that's kind of spurred on, I think also I would say the 90s, there was a lot of change around shifting funding from research away from basic science research, more to epidemiology. And that maybe sort of asked to say, what's the next step in what I want to do? At the time, I shifted to pharma industry, started as a sales rep. What was quite interesting at the time, I had friends as doctors, and I was then calling on them as a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company, and that led to quite interesting discussions when you're trying to persuade clinicians why one sort of drug is better than the other based on data, etc. But for me, when shifting to that, I realized even though while pharmaceuticals or corporate was around the commercial part, there was still a lot of good science that drove outcomes, decision-making of clinicians. So that appealed to me from where I was coming from. So there was still a science part from an organizational perspective. But it did open as I entered that space, opened my eyes to what I did in a small business space the scale in corporate was different. And so that actually dragged me and that introspect, which fortunately for me, because I had that initial business experience, which was more holistic than you have in per sales or marketing within a corporate, I was able to apply learnings which I had from outside corporate, which allowed me to progress very rapidly and within the pharmaceutical space do a number of commercial roles, some of them very interesting, gave me huge insights. And then eventually joining BD, where I ran into Peter. The interesting thing was when the mics were off, I was asked the question, what was Peter like to work for? I said, make sure the mics are still switched off before I answer that question. But I could honestly say at least he was a good guy to work for at the time. So that's been that transition from science, and importantly the organization I joined was still science-based in terms of how they commercialize products. But the fact that I had that initial business exposure allowed me to see the opportunity from business very differently. Some of the things that helped me be successful in the business space was, and I think something I very much still appreciate today, that we often speak about, you studied this and now you're doing this very different thing. The thing that, and I think for me, one of the valuable lessons which I tell anybody right now, what you learn in a degree are foundational building blocks. It's how you apply it in different spaces. So when you're doing a BSc or an honors and masters, you are learning analytical and critical thinking. You are learning about how to, challenge, understand, assimilate data and present it. And all of those are the kind of skills that you apply in different facets of life. So that early science thinking, which was very structured, but constantly drove to say, what is the boundaries of new, has been helpful in terms of when I look at both my business life and personal life, in terms of how I look to opportunities, look to kind of bring things together. And that's a kind of that transition from science to commercial to where I'm now, I would say, progressively over an extended period of time.
What was, because you said you moved from Cape Town to Joburg, what was that transition like for you? Like, what was so different about Joburg, besides the water and the mountain and all those things, the superficial things? What was the things that like really made you struggle with that into Joburg life?
I think so people speak about Cape Town and Joburg being different.
Yeah.
The first thing I would say, what was really different for me is in Cape Town right now, sun sets at 8:30 in the evening.
Yes.
In Joburg, sun sets
around 7.
Yeah. Which means from a lifestyle point of view, if you're in Cape Town, you can finish your workday and you can go for an outdoor activity at night.
True.
You can go down to the beach, you can go for a walk in the forest, and then you come home at 8 o'clock. So that is something which we would comfortably do in Cape Town. The first thing you realize in Joburg is why do people from Joburg leave later? And the point is that at 6 o'clock there's heavy traffic. So the kind of lifestyle changes. So instead of going to, when I first moved up to Joburg, I can either sit in the traffic for 45 minutes or I spend 15 minutes or half an hour later at work. So sometimes this thing around why do you spend longer in the office at Joburg? Because it's a time thing. It's the nature of where the city is and the kind of, I would say, the moving parts of the city. So that's one of the first things. It become comfortable to spend longer at the office because there was not that motivation to necessarily go outside and do that big thing late, especially in the summertime. So that was one of the things that almost as a family that needed to be adjusted. The other thing which I did not necessarily appreciate about Joburg at the time, which I appreciate now, when that early part, when you move to Joburg and it's about career, you focus around career, office, and profession. My appreciation for Joburg right now, and I wish I knew the stuff about Joburg today when I first moved up to Joburg, because it would have made that transition very different. One of the things that I said when I was working in Cape Town, with the laboratory I was working in, had this view of the mountain. One of the things which I now know about Joburg, because it's something I enjoy over the weekends, is Magalies is half an hour outside of northern suburbs, and if you go for a walk in the mountains, it's got the most fantastic views. In those early days, I was in northern suburbs, and I think if I knew some of the things that early part of transition would have probably been a lot better, because I would have been able to connect to the things which makes the soul happy earlier. But you only find out those things about those hidden gems about Joburg over time, I would say, and the things I appreciate now, which is just fantastic in terms of a lifestyle perspective.
This is what I've been telling people from Cape Town, that Joburg is great. You just need to know it.
Absolutely.
We hear there's so many other places, but because you kind of almost most people is like a grudge move when they move up, because it's so different. Like there's a palace here in Midrand. You can go check out the palace, have a sandwich, watch the sun go down. But those things you have to know them.
Absolutely.
There is a lion park or rhino park where you can see very rare white lions that are almost not available anymore in the world. There are the caves, also half an hour away from here. We can go down almost half a kilometer under the ground and get to know the world. So it's, I think it's probably, now that I'm in a kind of a commercial environment, I'll think about it for my company. If I were to move somebody from Cape Town, they do a bit of a tour guide to settle them outside the work, because you need to settle at the office. But then what happens if you stay in the east? There's some east stuff that we can deal with, or west or south. I think that stuff helps.
No, I think, as I said, if I know the things I appreciate about living in Joburg today, that first couple of years would have felt different. One of the things which I do now is with a group of friends we've taken up hiking. Literally. Okay. So literally,
is this something you enjoy doing, or it was like hiking and then?
No. This is something we enjoy doing. So I've got a group of friends which started a poker group.
I know that there's no start in Boston.
So this is a poker group that got started when my youngest daughter was in grade, before primary school, at Bryanston Pre-Primary School. Okay. We were at the school event. We started a poker group together, and it's now 18 years on. It's
what?
18 years on. We still actually next Friday. We still meet once a month. When you host, you cook. We started with the buy-in was 100 Rand. 18 years on, we still buy-ins 100 Rand. Nobody gets rich, nobody gets poor. The best laughter tonic which I have in my life. And we went as a couple of us. We used to meet on a Sunday morning, on a Saturday morning. You meet, anywhere in I would say in Magalies. Cradle Moon, Henops, you meet at like half past 6 in the morning. You do an hour hike. You come and you sit and have a breakfast at the river, or your breakfast overlooking the lake. You're done by 9 o'clock. You've had you recharged. And there's so many spots around Joburg. You can do in the same area, you can do a 5K hike, 8K hike, 10K, 15K. There's some guys on mountain bikes, etc. We eventually did Oxpecker as a hiking thing, trail run area in Drakensberg about a year ago. So it's not just, it's about the appeal of the outdoors. Yeah. Because if you're in roles like myself and your dad, we spend a lot of time at the office, or a lot of time on a plane, and a lot of time traveling. So to actually go out and just appreciate nature for what it is and what it does for you is something really special. And as I said, so the poker group has we do hiking trails, we do different things, but it's been, as I said, my biggest source of de-stress, because it's my biggest laughing group, which I have. My wife always says she never hears so much laughter as when you have these guys playing together.
Especially if you mix it with drinks.
So you're just having too much fun. That's what your wife is saying.
No, I think when you've got pressurized, stressful work roles, the benefit in this group of people that I know is we've got some of them are consultants, some of them senior roles in companies, and so we understand the pressures of the roles that we're in. So we rarely speak about, when we're together, it's really about work, but if you want to engage around a work type relation issue, that's something you can speak about. But it's an opportunity just to laugh together and sometimes at one another, because some of us has done something stupid and crazy for the evening. So it's an opportunity to you become to take the mickey out of something. But it's the fact it's the good natured part of it. And while we call it the poker group, we probably today's one of the key things for example, in one poker group, the person who was hosting it didn't organize dessert. Because the poker group you start, you have dinner, you have your dessert break, and you have your coffee break. So the guy did not organize. He forgot to do dessert for the one evening. He was running late. That became a discussion point for. The next time we had poker at his place, he had the wife, the daughter. It was the best dessert you've ever had in your life. Multiple kinds. And he kind of outperformed any one of us from a dessert perspective. And so that's a simple way, which is innocent fun, innocent, laughter. But I think it's that opportunity to de-stress, and laughter is a way of doing that better than most things in life, I would say.
So let's move on. There are a couple of things that I know to be true about you. You happily married with 2 daughters, probably the young adults at the moment, and you are a poker player. So where are the daughters now? How do you connect with them? In terms of, outside the hiking and, certain things that I do with my family. Also, I have my daughter and my son, and of course my wife. But I try to spend time with them individually outside the dinners and the things that we do as family. My daughter's kind of moved on. But what do you do to spend time with your daughters? I think they're very different in a way.
Yes.
One of them is more like you, and the other is the mother.
Yeah. So my eldest daughter is 26. She's a vet. So she's currently doing an internship.
Likes animals.
Absolutely loves animals. She's doing an internship at Barnes Veterinary Hospital. My youngest daughter is just down the road. My youngest daughter is 22. She's a 5th year medical student. So, and I think maybe before I answer, one of the big transitions in life is when you have 4 people living in the house and the family together, and then all of a sudden they're visiting you, which is what we have with my daughters right now, because one is staying in Pretoria and the one is staying in Sunny Hill. So I think for the things we do, so to purpose to build on that connectedness is we still do family holidays during the year, which means we spend time away from home with not work related together. So in the last year, we've probably done 3 in either a weekend away in Magoebaskloof, or we've just been to play together with the 4 of us. So you have the time where you can engage, and both of them enjoy outdoor activities. So this link to kind of going for a hike and a walk is something special. The thing which probably which we do together is I enjoy cooking. So it's less about the fact that we're feeding people. I cook. So I'll tell you an interesting story of a comment my father made about a week ago. So one of the things I enjoy after work is actually to cook, because it's a way to de-stress from, if you had a rough day, chopping some onions, putting it together, cooking a meal is a way to de-stress. So I enjoy the cooking part. And as a family cooking together, my daughter would make homemade pasta, I'd make the pasta sauce, we put a meal together. That's part of that connectedness. So it's not just the eating of the food, but it's actually that whole process. Because that extends the time together, because while you're cooking, you're eating. While you're preparing the food, you're talking. And so that is something we really, so that's actually one of the things which I have this evening. I've got a friend coming over, and there's a cooking part, which I'm being involved in. So that is another way it's a common interest. My youngest daughter loves baking. So, she makes homemade ice cream, she makes pasta, she does all of that thing. So that's a shared interest that we have. So even when we shop, it's about food, cooking items. So my gifts were salt and pepper sets, cooking items, because those are things which I love and enjoy. It's the way we, so that's part of the doing things together. Because I think one of the challenges as kids move out of home, when you're seeing each other, it's on a weekend, or it's because you're living in different cities.
So it's empty nest now.
So that's that emptiness. So it's about doing those things together. But purposely during the year is you plan a trip together, and that means you have got uninterrupted family time together. So it's something that's really important to me, that we still, I would say, kind of honor that family togetherness time, but find that moments where we both have, as families, have a common passion. So between meals, we'll allocate, depending on the skill set of the different parts of the family, parts of the meal, and you do that and you put it together, and you sit down either because you've got friends coming over, or you're sitting down together to enjoy that. So,
wow. So you kind of touched on two topics that we like to touch here on the podcast. One is your quality of sleep, if you sleep well, and how you go about that. And then the second one is you're saying you de-stress cutting onions, tomatoes, and garlic, whatever you mix up with your dishes that you make. So maybe let's talk a little bit about how's your sleep. It's a long time that I worked with you, and I think that time the sleep was good. I don't know now how that has evolved over time.
I would say my sleep is generally very good. One of the, I don't know, it's probably more of a personal thing. I've been able to, especially, I would say, with the exception when there's very high-end stress at work, most often compartmentalize work and home. So that when I was in a leadership course last year, and it was a lot of focus about leadership with purpose. And one of the key things, and it's probably one of the first leadership courses I was, and it said, what do you want to be as a leader, and how do you develop style? And the biggest thing which they focus on, how do you actually, in this times that we're living, uncouple work and home? What are the
work-life balance?
The absolute work-life balance, because you cannot be your best at work if your work is 24/7. There's no ways you can do that. So actually, what are the little things in life that you do different? So, and a simple thing which, even at work, how do you uncouple from one topic to another? One of the habits I've adopted is we've got a water station that is probably on the other side of the building, but probably takes me 2 minutes, 3 minutes there and 3 minutes back. The fact that I've gone to fill a cup of water between one meeting and the next means I'm uncoupling from one meeting to the next meeting. As an example of how you just uncouple at work. So some of those things, and that's why for me the area around cooking, doing those, going for a walk going for a half an hour walk in the evening as the way to say work has ended, home is started, and you try to. It's not something I've necessarily perfected throughout my professional year is, I would say, in the early part of my career, it was definitely something I had a perfect handle on. But it's probably in the last year or so that it's something that's better balanced, because if you don't have that as a leader, you compromised in both spaces.
Like a baby. What about the stress part? I mean, heading up the sub-Saharan Africa business, that size, I won't talk numbers. That comes with a lot of, say 40 something countries, some bigger, phone calls that are very unpleasant, either issues around your team or customers and all that. Those things tend to unsettle you, create a high amount of stress. How do you deal with that? Because people often come to you for solutions, for answers, to problems.
And I think that's probably when you have the senior leadership job, all of those funnel up. Those difficult areas, the most difficult customers, the most difficult issues funnel up into your role. So I spoke earlier about this, what I call the poker group, but it's actually because the friends in those group have similar type roles, or they have experience of that. When you are having that tough day or that tough decision, just having a coffee, early morning breakfast with one of them, not necessarily to talk about the issue, just to say, talk about the stress.
Yeah.
Means you're not taking that, because I think the challenge with stress, in which I think especially in business leaves you compromised. Once stress leaves you emotionally charged, it compromises your decision making, because you the way you're balancing the issue at hand is driven by too many things at one go. So you have to have that outlet. And as I said, when I call my poker group, I says my group of fun and laughter. But it's also the group I says, geez, are you free for breakfast on Thursday? Let's have a coffee on a Saturday. Let's do a park run walk. And while instead of running, you're doing a walk and you're kind of just chatting, getting something off your chest. And it's not necessarily company confidential, but it gives you that opportunity to vent in a space with somebody that safe understands. Space. And I think it's really critical to have that in life, because what you don't want to be doing is taking that stress out.
So maybe in going towards closing, just to give you an opportunity maybe to ask us a question or two before we close, because up until now, I think, except once, we've been kind of bombarding you with questions. So a moment of revenge.
And I think, so maybe so you've obviously done a couple of these, and maybe I would say, somebody that's going to be a young professional, and you look at leaders and these learnings, maybe my question to you would, what have you taken as a learning that somebody that's taken, as I said, in my career, you learn things that wish I knew it earlier. Yeah. What are those one or two things which is, wow, if I apply that now, I'll already be better off at my start of my career than learning that after 10 years? What are the one or two things that you picked up?
I think one of the things I've learned, not really from this, but it just cemented it, was that if you want to do something, just start. Don't wait for whatever excuse you can come up with in your head or whatever you think is wrong with such just start. You'll fix whatever you want to fix later on once you've started and are moving. I think, that's something I've learned. It's like, if you want to do something, just do it. Don't give yourself 1,000,001 excuses to not do something. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one who regrets and say, I should.
Absolutely.
All right, with all that, let's close it. And thank you very much.
No, thanks a lot.
Really
thanks
appreciate it.
No, it's good. Thank you.
It's